to review, correct, Nick? There were none that we have in front of us. Let's go over some old business and new business. Under old business, we have a shoreline application from Caleb Albert. He is not here. I suggest we skip that. They were the people who are here.
Didn't you table that at the last meeting?
Yep. Yeah, because we were waiting on it. I know we have something in front of us, but it's just, so nothing additional here, so,
We haven't heard anything from him.
okay. Well, we should talk about it. How does the board feel? Or what does the board feel?
We've got to table it. We couldn't act on it 3 weeks ago. We can't act on it tonight. You didn't bring in any information.
Well,
Since it's on the agenda, though,
Yeah.
I think we need to table it again.
I think so too, so I entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to table the application of Caleb Albert.
Motion and,
Oh, second.
okay, thanks. Motion and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? 4 in favor, 5 in favor. Are you in favor?
You about the, I'm an alternate, so we got a full group, so.
Yep.
I
Okay,
thought I was the alternate.
none opposed.
But I can't.
Hello?
No.
Second.
Look.
I'm tabling.
Ah.
Caleb, hi. Good. We just tabled your application. What does the board feel?
We're gonna have to make another motion and put it back on the agenda. Because we already motioned to table it.
Make a motion to place the application of Caleb Albert back on the table.
Motion?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. So, we last met, we had some things to discuss, and we asked that you fill in some gaps.
I appreciate you guys turning back on. I do have the letter that you guys needed,
Okay?
signed by them, so that I can speak on your behalf.
Okay,
I said to you that.
right. So I'm gonna give this to Nick. The board, we'll pass it around so the board can see if it is from Orna.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's also from our husband, I believe.
Okay.
As we had spoken last time, just to kind of brief everybody, especially the couple of you that I don't recognize, I wasn't on the last time. I'm trying to put in a proposed deck for a couple customers. And we have gone, I redrew the map, and we found out that the deck that I'm looking to put on, proposed to put in, is 176 square feet. And there's some structures in there that we have included with 150 square feet. So I was 26 square feet too much. So obviously I wasn't going to have a pass for them too big. But in the pictures that we had looked at, there was a woodshed that was off to the side that was within the 75-foot mark from the water's edge. So I proposed to bring it out of the 75-foot mark, depending on what size it was. It was 44 inches by 100 inches, which came up to 30.5 feet. I wrote it down on here for you. And which would give me about 4.5 cubic feet bigger than what I would actually need. So my proposition is to rearrange what was there for the 150 square feet, move the woodshed completely out of the 75-foot zone to the corner of the house, which would get it about 90 feet from the edge of the water. And then that would gain me 180 square feet of deck that I could possibly build, but I only need 176. So like just squeaking it in there. And the red on the paperwork that I just gave you, the red is the proposed deck and the proposed area to move the shed. And the black is what's there now. And they're perfectly okay with option of being able to move the shed there, and they were happy with it, they were at no issue.
Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you.
We had a pretty good discussion about this last time. We looked at the math, looked at what.
And the pictures.
And the pictures and what you were proposing to do, and I think we,
Nick, you still got those pictures?
I think through our discussion, had a pretty clear understanding of what you intended to do, and I think you then understood what we were asking.
Correct, that was 26 square feet too big.
Right.
And then I believe it was him that actually saw the woodshed,
Right.
but I didn't know the size at the time. I did a measure.
Yeah.
Where's the woodshed they're gonna be?
Only thing I would say about the site plan is that we probably should have it dated so that we know which one is the one that we're gonna be
Deck is
approving.
down here.
Agreed, I
and
think the
It's
same
coming up this
thing.
way, and this is what's all broken.
Is
this gonna be
what they
dated and
replaced the way
initialed?
They planted flowers.
Is that
It's
by
all
you?
broken up. That's what they want to redo. That's the well that they've been hitting.
Oh, now,
Yeah, might as well, I
Yeah,
guess.
this is the lower one, which is down here.
Is this today's? Yes.
Yeah.
Six.
Seven.
All day.
This hasn't been my day. And then.
It's coming up this way. So the woodshed's gonna go back here, right?
Yeah, actually, that's this. Nope, that's not that. This one. This is the,
that's
So their
today's.
driveway
Yes.
comes down
That's
this
my,
way, and this is
that's
all,
what you guys want me to sign this as well?
apparently the
That's
stones and
today's
concrete and
description of
stuff,
what
and
I'm
it's getting
doing.
all broken up, and it's moving.
That would be
has
good.
this changed?
Yeah, because we're moving the shed and.
Okay,
That was
yeah,
just-
no, why don't you date and initial that too, so that we know.
That was just kind of what I
What we're
said,
approving.
but I wanted to,
Since it's gonna be part of the application package.
Yeah,
it'd be good.
so we, somebody looks at this 6 months from now, they don't get confused which is which.
correct, because that was last
You wouldn't
time.
even
Right, this is the last time, this is the old
It's
one.
just a
Yep,
structure
right.
there, rotting right
That's
up.
actually-
Thanks.
So now with, hi Pete, go ahead.
Did anyone talk about how close the well is to the building and all that?
How close to
The
well
well?
is?
Yeah, is there any setback on the well?
No, just septic system.
No setbacks for well?
Some
No,
people
no.
even have them under their homes.
Really?
Yeah. Not very good for maintenance, but.
You wanna look at these, Pete? This one doesn't show you the driveway, but that's the lower deck.
Yeah.
This is the woodshed that we're
Yeah.
gonna move back to here. So
So by,
there's the deck down here,
Okay.
there's the well, and this is the area that's broken up.
Go there.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
and there's the front door, so.
so with this, after our discussion and your considerations and talking with the owners about what to do, now proposing to take that woodshed location now to a spot further back. Now the calculations, as you've outlined, would line up with what we're talking about. Is it still true that with the application that you submitted before, on the front page where it says the proposed structure, you had 176 square feet, are we still sticking to that number?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
So- so we're all good with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
We did have something, you announced it 148, and then 76 is what crossed out. I don't know if you had them amended real quick.
We started to amend it,
Yeah.
and then he noticed the woodshed.
Yes, right, that, so we need, yeah, we need
Yes.
to
yeah, I just want to make
have
sure
them
we're...
amended back. It was so much fun the first time.
Amend the amendment?
We had it, and he had a great idea.
Darn those great ideas.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that we were, what was being
Yeah, no,
presented is accurate.
good catch.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
So there's no big edge,
Right,
no drip edge?
right. You're not, there's no excavation, there's no edge that's being,
On the deck?
Yeah,
No.
so,
There's no roof on the deck.
go ahead.
The only thing I would point out, and I believe we can handle this as a condition, but I want to kind of raise it for discussion first, is you may recall that with the changes to the ordinance approved last March, and because we incorporated the state minimum guidelines, any expansion of a non-conforming structure requires the site plan, the approved site plan and the permit to be registered with the county registry of deeds. I assume that applies here since this is an expansion of a non-conforming structure.
That's a good point. Right, I guess I'm thinking you are correct, and I don't know why it wouldn't apply. Does anybody have any opinions about that?
I only raise it because it's a deck and, which I consider, I think, is defined as structure, but
What they talk about that in the plan? What part of the,
it's on page 11, small paragraph D.
why don't you read that out loud, please?
Sure, and improved, so this is in the section that deals with non-conforming structures and their expansion. And it says an approved plan for expansion of a non-conforming structure must be recorded by the applicant with the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of approval. The recorded to-scale plan must show the existing and proposed footprint of the non-conforming structure, the existing and proposed structure height, the footprint of any other structures on the parcel, the shoreline zone boundary, and evidence of approval by the Municipal Review Authority.
Okay.
And this actually applies both to the permits you issue as well, Gary.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's new, right?
Right, it's
So-
new, right?
Yeah.
So-
Basically, we could file this.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly.
Yep,
With your signature if you approve.
correct. But it's a new step that,
Yeah.
in,
Where it's new, do we want to make note in our approval of the application that, that it needs to be, done as a condition, and also state the particular reference, in the ordinance? Say specifically what page, chapter, subsection, all that stuff, for clarity purposes.
Actually, I don't issue it on non-conforming structure, so I don't use it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's true, yeah.
So is your question, Peter, whether it should be conditional approval?
Well, if you're gonna, well, I think, if I hear George right, we're gonna do a condition, right?
That's my suggestion.
Okay, if we do that, we need to reference the basis for the condition, right out of the law, because my point is, it's new, and it's a big change. Recording all this stuff down at the Registry of Deeds, so.
yeah, I'm okay.
When should it move, when should it be moved?
Oh, so your question is, when should it be moved?
What's that? The woodshed, when should that be moved? During construction.
Yeah, during construction is fine.
Yeah.
right?
Before completion. So that'd be another,
You guys like pictures of it after this is approved, to show the shed to get slid over?
yeah, we'd be checking anyway, so
Right.
You'll let the picture.
Yeah,
it'd just be another condition.
that's a good thought.
So do you get what we're saying about registering with the registry?
That's new to me, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's new to all of us.
Yeah, it's,
I haven't heard that one yet, I had to do it, so that's
Yeah,
something
it-
I would have to do?
or the owner.
Or the owner?
You, the owner,
They
yeah.
would probably have me do it, because I confuse them just trying to explain how to do it. I'm a
Right.
little confused, to be honest myself.
So it'd be a permit application with the drawing, and registry of deeds is down near the jail, isn't it?
Yeah,
With your
Okay.
signatures on it.
Yep.
yeah,
Is it
it-
before or after?
Within 90 days of
yeah,
completion.
yeah, it would be 90 days,
Yep.
basically today.
So I would recommend you get a copy of our shoreline zone ordinance, because we can, then you're looking at exactly what we're looking at. There's no, it's not like we're interpreting something, it's like page 11, paragraph D, you just go right through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really straightforward, but it's
I
in,
haven't had to do that yet with any town.
right.
Yeah.
They don't.
Well,
They will
any
be.
town that adopted the state minimum guidelines has the same requirement, and so
Right.
Smithfield would, I don't know what Rome's done yet, but, or Mount
Right.
Vernon.
Yeah, I was wondering about Mount Vernon, yeah. But if they adopted the state guidelines, this is part of it, and it's a new thing,
I
so.
haven't really shoreline zone yet this year, this is my first one, so, I mean, it was done in March, I was saying, why I haven't had to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking that there are two conditions that will probably be associated with this. But are there more points to bring up to the applicant in this case, or anything?
Thank God for that woodshed.
I know, that was an excellent point, yeah, good going, Roger. So if no other comments, I would entertain a motion with the appropriate conditions.
I'll take a try.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the application as submitted with two conditions. The first is that the shed be moved prior to the completion of construction. And the second be that, and I can go over this a second time for you, Nick, record the approved site plan and permit at the Kennebec County Registry of Deeds within 90 days of permit approval date in accordance with Section 12C 1D of the town's shoreline zoning ordinance.
Well done. I'll second that.
Very well done. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. We have two conditions. Do you have any other questions for us? Okay. Okay. Right. And we'll make sure you know what to do. It's very straightforward, right? Do we have any other comments for the applicant?
No?
Nick, did you get his handwritten condition?
Yes.
Okay, that will help, so we don't have to worry about that. Good job. Anything else? All those in favor? Any opposed? Pete?
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yes, please.
No.
Okay, so while Pete,
You're on
yeah, so-
Showing your age.
Hurry back.
So that was 5 in favor, none opposed. So while Pete's unavailable, so Gary talked about the two things, right? You go down to Kennebec County Registry of Deeds. You'll get the permit mailed to you, and it's that thing in the site plan, according to this. That's what you take with you when you register it in the Kennebec County Registry of Deeds.
You know where the registry is in Augusta?
I do, I had a title search done in my,
Yeah.
and then you told me when I get there.
Yeah, it's the same office, same process, basically.
Nick doesn't typically nail down site plans.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And that's all there is to it, so. So thank you very much. Thanks for making that trek over again. Yeah. Don't get a ticket. It's not worth it.
Just remember, as soon as you start construction, there's all kinds of eyes on you.
So Pete still needs to sign these.
Let's stamp the site plan real quick.
More opinions than there are
He has to
people.
record the new one, just the new one, right?
What's that?
He has to record just the new one.
Just
So
new,
now
yeah,
everybody's
just the
covered.
one that we approved.
Hey, it's- How are you? Thanks for coming over.
Right, well, I'll mail it.
Oh, you gotta go on that?
Yeah.
I've been doing a few different plans with different towns, and this one's actually one of the helpful ones.
Really, it's good to hear. 'Cause,
As you guys kick Winslow's ass, for sure.
yeah,
I mean, you know, they're always nerve wracking, people don't really know the game of how to do it, even after doing it 2 or 3 times, you still, you don't know what to expect. But helping out a lot more than the other towns. You know, it's a lot easier, I hope I have to come back with you. It makes it a lot easier, because you guys are helping, not
yeah,
interrogating.
right. Because we know that people don't, we understand that people are not entirely familiar with the process. It's many times very new.
Every time they're different, as far as what they want in order.
Yep. Can be unique. So Gary, anything else for Caleb? Or we all set? We're all set, so you'll get it, and you got the copy, right? You good to go, you're welcome to hang around if you want. Yeah, you buzzed all
You
the
gotta
way
be,
over, might as well
have
hang
better ways to
around.
spend your time than this.
Yeah,
Well, I go back over that, a couple of things.
okay, all right,
You guys have a good night.
thanks,
Have
you
a good
too.
one.
Thanks. Next on the agenda, we move into new business, and Jack is here, we have a discussion.
I didn't realize I had a spot all of my own, and I'd be certainly willing to wait until somebody else, if this gentleman is,
Okay,
if that's,
how does the board feel? Move ahead?
Up to Jack.
Sure.
Doug, are you okay with that?
Go fine either way. Always like to Mr. Sutton's speak.
Yep.
Doesn't matter either way to me.
Okay,
go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you.
all right, let's move on to Doug's application. Does everybody have the permit application? Ah, thank you.
Thank you.
And I do want to point out, Nick,
Hi.
thank you very much for, I guess we've edged into the new
Right.
applications that were posted, so it does have a slightly new and,
This one was, I think I had a Word version of, so some of the stuff is moving around.
okay. Okay,
This is double sided too.
Yeah.
Site plan's on the other side.
Right.
okay. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate the fact that you submitted pictures too. That's important for completion purposes, so we appreciate that, Doug. All right, so what are you proposing to do? I'm seeing convert the existing deck.
16 by 18 jack off the right side, and you look at the water, you know, just enclose that as a steam pool.
Well, this is on,
Yeah.
So in the series of color photos you submitted tonight, that's the page 2? Is
I
that
gave all
correct?
my copies to you.
That's this one.
Copy of the drawings, which haven't provided you. Yeah, exactly.
So does everybody have that, the second page? We're talking about the same
Yep.
deck.
And the stairs are gonna be removed.
Oh, they're gonna be
Being
removed?
nosy here,
Yeah, that's what it says in the back here.
they have a radon gas ventilation system?
Yeah, just
Look.
what it is,
Looked like it.
yeah.
Looks like they're gonna put them in the back instead.
Yeah.
Oh, George, is that what's on page 3, the pipe that comes from the?
Yeah.
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 Usually we'd like to put them up through the entire house, and we could tell that. Depends on the site we're on that side. Better than having.
Radon gas.
Right.
Less than 2 years.
Don't you get that, Pete?
Okay.
These
So
are
what-
coming
what
out,
lake are we
and then
on?
Put it here.
Straight line,
Okay,
According to that.
whereabouts?
right here, Fort.
Oh, okay.
So, and then Roger pointed out that on the site plan, the existing stairs that are there will be removed, and then they gotta go to the
To
backside?
that, yes, no stairs, no stairs.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. That makes sense.
So,
And same height as the existing building?
The deck would stay at the same elevation, and then the roof pitch would be would be lower than the existing one because it's a smaller section. The main house is 24, and this is only 18 feet, so it would be about 2 feet lower than the existing.
so you just carry the same,
Yeah, same ridge,
Line.
the same portion, but lower.
yep, so you'd have a reveal over each side. Got it. Okay. And then, would that now new roof have gutters like
The
other
whole
parts?
house is gonna have gutters,
Okay.
yeah.
And then that goes to, how do you control that water down, or how do you?
We're gonna have to do it with the best of management practices.
Okay.
Are you thinking like dry well or something like that, since you're gonna have so much water?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Not sure if you're aware that the Great Gutter Company in Mount Vernon is
Oh, sorry.
called Gutter Get It Done.
Oh, I did not know.
They are absolutely amazing. They've been doing work for me for 2 years, and they are absolutely amazing guys.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll actually have to bring some cards in here.
Sure.
I know you guys are big on, as I am on the erosion control, and they're very conscientious about how they do things.
Good.
We do everything the right way.
Good. Glad to know.
Well, I'm surprised this one here hasn't really eroded.
Yeah. It takes part of the runoff from the front side of the house, front and
Half
left.
of it, actually better than half, because we've got this one too.
Yeah. So what does the board have for comments or questions for the applicant? Anything? Pete, anything?
Huh?
Rich, anything?
No, just the deck pillars are all gonna be just building on top of the existing deck?
We're gonna actually replace them, we're gonna do the helical tiles like we did on the last project I came before you. It's the least intrusive way to do it. The ones that are there now are not very stable. And the helical tiles, have to teach them out of the surface.
Is that the techno post?
Yeah, that's what that was.
So no excavation per se?
Well, some of them, by removing the stairs, would be a little more or less than conforming.
That's the way I
There's
feel.
a few square
Right.
feet.
Yeah,
I would agree.
yeah, this is the extended path that's under that 80-foot mark now, and we'll be back to about 84.
Okay. That sounds good. Craig, do you have any questions? No? So we talked about the techno posts. George, do you have any questions?
No, I would just note that we're probably gonna need the same condition of approval as we did on the last, with
Yep.
regard to the recording,
Yep, true.
since it's a non-conforming structure.
Yep. Any other questions?
If we're not expanding those, would it
Yeah.
need that?
It's not
We're not
expanding.
expanding, it's existing.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
existing non-conforming.
right, yeah.
I don't-
Because it's not
I read
expanding
that
square
myself.
footage.
Yeah, I didn't
Right,
see
no,
it
you, good
applied.
point, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So the
No,
only
I thi-
condition is the best practice management, that would be it.
Right, yeah, just the stormwater.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay. If there are no more comments or questions for the applicant, I would entertain a motion on this.
Make a motion, we accept permit number 7517, 19. What one condition that best practice management be used,
For the stormwater runoff.
stormwater runoff.
I'd second that.
Okay. Been motion, second. Any more discussion? Doug, do you have any questions for us?
I don't, I have a letter from the owner, if Nick wants it, as far as me representing him.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I knew you were gonna ask, so I did it ahead of time.
Good job.
Tom Brady, huh?
Oh, I did, boy, he tell you some stories, let me tell you.
Then, as usual, Nick, we would have some pamphlets when. So, there's a motion on the floor, it's been seconded, no more questions from Doug, no more things from us. All those in favor? 5 in favor, none opposed.
Copy that. Yeah, I do, thanks.
So it'll get mailed to you, okay?
Thank you.
And I'm ready to sign.
I'll leave you a check.
Yeah, I know. Was it snowing yet?
No, 37 when I came in, I don't know if it's there.
Stop showing me.
You can see kind of, drops on the windshield when I come in. It's not snowing, but there's a little bit of frozen stuff in it.
Yeah.
Did you notice how big my lab looks?
Yeah.
Camperdown.
Oh, yeah.
Brought it up there that windy Saturday. No wait, I thought, lighten the camper, I fought the wheel all the way to Bangor.
Thank you. Thank you. Shouldn't take you too long to get that done, huh?
No. An easy one.
Everybody signed it? Nick, you all set? All right. Great, you're all set.
I know I'm listening to this.
Excellent, excellent. Welcome. You wanted to talk about some things tonight?
Yeah,
Please, let us
I don't
know.
have an application here. I do have some concerns and some questions that you may or may not be able to answer tonight, but I'll try to keep it as brief as I can.
No problem.
And my wife is gone now, and I own land on the west road, on the west side of Lake Road. The house is on the east side, but we also own land on the west side of Lake Road. I believe it's listed as map 5, lot 11. And it runs between West Road and Long Pond, runs on Long Pond. And on the south side, the line runs right down through the pond and it crosses a little stream and continues on to a point of land out from south to north into Long Pond. And it's not a part of the original Sandy Cove development, but it borders on Sandy Cove. And it's reachable only through Sandy Cove, reachable through my car, only through Sandy Cove, with access to that road, with a deed from General Hill to our property line. It borders on the property of Stephen Jones, who is in Sandy Cove. We have no plans for development of the property. We enjoy it as it is, as a wooded point into the lake, very rocky and weathered places. Beavers abound, chewing the trees. couple of years ago, Mr. Jones approached me and said that he was building a garage, and he needed to make some more parking space to prepare for parking where the garage was going to go. And I said, that's fine. I said, the only thing we're concerned about is to maintain our right of way, and that it doesn't involve our property at all. You can drop trees on ours if you want to, if that's what it takes to do it. After that was fine. This time progressed, we watched the going gone, and all of a sudden there was a two-story house on the property. I understand it was permitted as a garage with some adjuncts as a bunk house. I have not been in the new structure. I understand it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It did have a kitchen. I don't know if the kitchen's been taken out or not. And it was fully set up as a house. Has big windows on the right side. It's very nicely, actually very nicely done. But it's a separate piece of property. Then I understand that there was a problem with his plumbing because his plumbing was piped into the septic system at the main camp on the property. The property map, the one that I have, and it's an old one, shows 120 feet of frontage for that lot. Now, there's 2 separate dwellings on the lot. As far as I could tell, as far as I understood. I don't understand how it's legal to permit that. I understand the town had actions against him because the building was built and home not accordance to the law. And I understand the change has been made so that this is all secondhand hearsay. that the septic system will be enlarged, and with the enlargement of the septic system, it can be, the removal of the kitchen, it can be approved. I don't understand what mechanism, if any, exists to make sure the kitchen doesn't disappear as it has on other times and other places out of Sandy Cove. But that's another point. Our own personal concerns with this are two. Number one is to maintain the access to our own property over the road. And if any septic system changes do not interfere with travel over that road. There may come a time when there has to be a logging truck or two because of the woolly velvets and the cedar and the hemlock that we have down there. And it is in the free growth program, and within the law, we would have to, at some point, cut some trees selectively. And the other point is that I don't know where their existing septic system is on their property, but if the work is done to enlarge the septic system, I would want to make sure that the legal distance between a well on our property, there is none now, and I don't have any plans to put one in, but I don't want to totally preclude the possibility of somebody in the future putting a well on our property. That the distance between the septic system and the well, a future well on our property, can be maintained, and if we don't become an extension of his drainage field. Those are our 2 personal concerns. My deeper concern really is the message that this sends to the general public, because word gets around. And it is around. I know it's around in Sandy Cove. that this thing doesn't appear to be a legal project, and it's hard to see how it can be made one. And if this is approved, if this is approved with whatever changes, what kind of a message does that send around to the town, to the townspeople? We're trying right now to keep the wastewater quality up and to observe the shoreline zoning orders of it. Those are my concerns.
I understand, I've tried to take some notes as you were speaking about your concerns, and I understand them. And I'm not sure if we can speak to all of them, but perhaps maybe Gary, would you like to speak to any parts of it now? Okay.
We've been working with Mr. Jones for over a year now. The town attorney has written up a consent agreement. Putting in a brand new septic and all expansion and septic today. I just got a copy of it yesterday. After the show. Kitchen has been removed. So the septic system is, I believe, I have to look at it again, I believe it's for 5 bedrooms, there's 3 bedrooms in the new construction, 2 existing in the existing plan. I believe the design says it's for a 5-bedroom home. But this is not anything new, we've been working, Dennis and I started working with Mr. Jones a long time ago. It's been almost a year. Anthony's now involved, the attorneys are now involved, and that is probably going to be the solution. A new septic system for the bedrooms that were added. I've verified that the kitchen has been removed. So, they actually took the stove right out, they took out the 220 outlet for the stove, and they actually refilled it with a cabinet, basically. I think there was my, for the stove was been removed. I can't remember it's been a while, but I did see that. This isn't new to me, we've been working with them for the result.
So,
Is this a non-conforming lot and a non-conforming structure?
It's a conforming structure, it's very new.
So it's more than 100 feet back?
It is. What happened was, when the application came in, they showed that it was a conforming lot. They showed 200 feet of frontage. I said, conforming lot, conforming structure, and I issued permit.
Right.
Come to find out it's a non-conforming lot, and it should have gone to permit. Just got a letter today from the neighbor's attorney, and I believe what we're going to do is have Mr. Jones submit a new application for just what he wants to do, minus the kitchen, and send it to the planning board for their review. Because the attorney feels that the planning board needs to deny it before the select board can approve the consent agreement that has been written.
oh,
That's in the works.
okay.
Just got a copy from the chairman, the neighbor's attorney.
So,
Yeah.
Deny what he originally did, you mean, or
Now, he's gonna submit an amended permit application. His original was for.
after the fact?
Yep, for a garage with a laundry facility. The application will now say a garage with a bunkhouse with 3 bedrooms with sleeping area above, and no kitchen. And it will identify that there's a new system, septic system being installed to accommodate these new bedrooms. And, it will come before you.
I guess what confuses me is, why wouldn't he go to the Board of Appeals if he was going anywhere?
Well, actually, it won't be a denial. It won't be.
Oh, okay, I thought you said we would.
I did say that, I'm sorry. It won't be a denial.
I was trying to figure out what, yeah, okay, yeah. No, I agree with that
But
myself.
after the fact, amended.
Yeah, right.
For exactly what you want.
Consent agreement hasn't been signed yet, right?
No, it's all right now.
I'm wondering, I'm going back to Jack's concern about how would anybody ever know if he puts it back in?
right,
Well, when Dennis was here, Dennis, I believe it says, I'd have to look at it again, I believe it says in the consent agreement that there can be no cooking facilities, and that, I think it says that it has to be registered to register of deeds. To say just that, the consent agreement gets registered with the deed, for the property. The fact of the matter is, if you came before you, or before me, a year ago, and straight up said, I want to build a garage with 3 bedrooms above, with no kitchen facilities, you could have, in fact, issued a permit.
Probably would have done it the way we've done others, though, where we've, with a condition making it clear that there's to be no kitchen facilities.
Well, this whole thing, what happened was, the contractor gave me a half-assed application for one thing, and it showed the garage with running facilities. When I go down and the building's all up, I'm like, wow, there's a kitchen, there's 3 bedrooms, I said, and then Mr. Jones himself talked to Dennis and I and said, this project just evolved, okay? My wife was in charge of this project, and her and the contractor discussed, well, you know, maybe it'd be nice to put a bedroom up there, or 2 bedrooms up there, and he said, it evolved from what it was supposed to be.
Right. Getting to Jack's other concern with regard to where the new leach field will be relative
Right.
to the right-of-way,
Yep.
his right-of-way. Can you address that?
Yeah, I'll go get it. I just got it yesterday. I had to send it to the state for their approval.
What I had been getting at when I was thinking about the consent agreement hasn't been signed, it would be the possibility, and I'm not involved in the consent agreement at all, I didn't know about it at all, but whether a condition or whatever, or something to be placed in the consent agreement that grants Gary or somehow the code officer shall be authorized to inspect the site with reasonable notice so that he already did this in violation. It wouldn't be, I wouldn't think it would be inappropriate to put specifically in there that the code officer has the
That's in the
authority
consent
and proper
agreement now.
notice to inspect it.
That's in the consent agreement.
It is.
Good idea.
I mean,
So that will carry
You know,
over
that's
from
nice.
owner to owner? That condition will carry from owner to owner?
It gets registered to register of deeds. I mean, I can't assure you that in
Right.
20 years somebody
Yeah.
will stick a kitchen in there. Nor could I, you know,
Yep.
Just like anybody else, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yep.
you know.
That is part of the difficulty we would have with anything that's approved, right?
yeah, no, I mean, yep, exactly. I mean, you know, 10 years from after the permit's been approved, we don't know what's
We don't,
going on inside.
and we have no mechanism. I think, Jack, you had asked, what mechanism might
That's
be
the
in
garage that was
place.
constructed. That's the existing camp, 3-bedroom camp. Oh, it's 2 bedrooms, okay. I thought it was 2. And the new system is right here.
Where's the right of way?
Just the right-of-way?
I don't know, Jack will have to show me that. Where,
You look at a lot of those home remodeling shows where they say that it's only been permitted for 2 bedrooms, and you bought it as a 3, and what are you gonna, well, what are they gonna do? You tear it apart. It's the only way it can be enforced. If they get caught.
It's only 100 feet, so the lot's gonna be bigger than 100
First come, first
Yeah,
served.
well, and the other thing too now is
It's like my
the
neighbor
drinking
across
water
the street wants to
program
put another bedroom on the second
considers the
floor.
vertical depth as well as the
I don't have to
horizontal
change anything, will I?
distance. So if you have a bedrock well, and you're taking water down 100 feet, or say 200 feet, you can get a variance for,
Well,
by-
convert one to
up
a
to,
den.
even though it's only 100 feet away.
If it's a sealed casing going down into
That,
that.
hydrogeologically, that's not quite kosher, but, but that's what they do. Groundwater doesn't move laterally and then go down. It just goes
I
down.
understand that.
Just goes
The fact
down.
of the matter is, when a site evaluator goes out and designs a septic system, he designs it to meet the current plumbing code. If you don't have a well there now, he can't say, I can't put a septic system here because someone might put a well there in the future.
Just so I understand, what he does, has implications of what we can do on that property. Thank you.
So what would, I'm sorry, I was jabbering over here, so
What
I
we were
didn't
saying
hear
was-
about the right-of-way.
Let's say his right of way right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be over the leach field.
No, that's the new leach field. And basically what I'm saying is, he's about 10 feet from this line,
Mhm.
which would mean if Jack, in the future, wanted to drill a well, he should be 90 feet
Right,
from this property.
90 plus 10. And that's true for it, well, as I understand, it's true
Any
for any
circumstance.
case that's like that now.
Yeah. That's correct.
Right.
And, yeah. I don't know any other way around that.
That's what I'm saying. The plumbing code allows him to put a septic there, because there is no well here at the time.
Now, the reverse, so,
Yeah, the reverse is different.
right, the
If there
spite
was a well
well,
there now,
right,
he'd have to look at with a different placement of this leach field.
right. Did you understand that, Jack?
All I can say is thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's in state plumbing code, right? Versus
That's-
just, versus our ordinance.
Hey, I had a question regarding the consent agreement.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get a question with the process of a consent agreement. So what happened, this guy did it illegally, right? And then if the consent agreement has to be done, why not just say the other, you know, so a consent agreement's being done to let the guy let the building stay there. Alternative is take the building out.
Well, the thing is,
What?
once he removes the kitchen and puts a septic system in, he's in compliance.
Well, once he gets a permit from us, he's in
Right.
compliance.
Right.
Well, or, okay, I'm just trying to think. So it sets a precedent for someone to do it wrong, but purposely or not purposely, then they turn around, correct it and get a consent agreement and kind of keep what they wanted.
Well, the consent agreement includes fines,
Yeah.
the legal fees that the town has spent thus far.
Oh, what's the legal, how much is the
I
fine?
can't remember, Peter, it's been
Roughly.
a long time, I don't even remember. I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been, like I said, this was drawn out.
All right, so how are the property owners gonna be, property owners, the budding property owners, are they gonna be notified of the consent agreement? Yeah, they're kinda curious, the process, are they gonna appear at the, hearing on the consent agreement or whatever? Are they not, you know, how do they?
They know all about it. That was their attorney that sent me the letter today.
All right, so let us,
That's another issue.
what do you mean?
There's two neighbors,
Yeah.
and this garage was built in violation of the deed restrictions. He built it too close to the property line between the neighbor.
Yeah.
That's not my issue.
Okay,
That's not our issue.
all right.
That's between those
All right,
two.
okay.
It's a civil
and-
matter.
All right, I'm trying to think. Is there any kind of public, anything, there's these consent agreements, how do the public and people in the town know about it? Because, do they know? Is it necessary for them to know? I guess I'm getting at the process, you know, just,
No, not necessarily.
you know.
Well, that's like, you may recall, when we were revising the ordinance itself, we had a fairly, I don't know, lengthy is the right term, but we did discuss whether or not, or under any circumstances, should abutters be notified of permits that come to us, and we decided no,
Correct.
as is the case now, and it's not in the minimum guidelines from DEP either. Unlike, say, the commercial development review ordinance, or subdivision, for example.
All right, I was just thinking, you know, where you got a violation, you know.
Well, I think your point's an important one. This, or any other case, the resolution should not reward the violator for having violated the ordinance. So the consent agreement shouldn't grant them what they couldn't have gotten via a legitimate permit.
And it's not.
application.
And it's not.
And it sounds like it's, as long as they apply to us for,
Right.
Yeah,
and it's something we can approve.
and there's gonna be hopefully a substantial fine.
I don't, I have to look at it. I don't
Okay.
even have it. It's in the attorney's hands.
Right.
It's been
Okay.
years since I've seen it. It's about a 10-page document that Dennis worked on.
Yeah,
Okay. Anthony's involved with it at this point.
okay.
Who's been involved with the attorney regarding this same issue.
Okay, and then, I'm just thinking, put my shoes in Mr. Sutton's shoes, all of a sudden, oh yeah. Miss Jack, were you aware of this consent agreement type thing happening, or is this all new to you, or what?
As of yesterday morning, I was aware of it, because I got a call from the neighbor on the other side asking who she should talk to about it.
Yeah, prior to that, you weren't aware of it, what was going on, as far as consent agreements, stuff like that?
The last I heard was from Dennis Ketchel. The last I thought was the building was going to be taken down.
That's because the owner had said, I don't see any way to resolve this issue with the neighbor. Therefore, I probably will tear this building down. And my comment to Dennis was, this is probably a $250,000 structure. There's no way in hell he's going to tear it down.
Yeah.
And I was right. He's not going to tear it down. He's going to have to battle out his neighbor. That's the one.
Well, that's a civil matter
That's
between the
not
two
our
of them.
issue. That's not our issue.
Unless for some reason the building's too close to the property line, it doesn't meet.
They have a 15-foot setback.
Jack, you had a comment.
Yeah, I had one other question. I'm not up to date with the shoreline zoning ordinance in the town, but I did have a 2006 copy of the Department of Environmental Protection Guidelines for Municipal Building Board. And it says the act requires that municipalities adopt shoreline zoning ordinance consistent with no less stringent and mixed-use zoning requirements. So, looking at the minimum requirements in the model ordinance in the state, it says minimum lot standards, minimum lot area, minimum shore frontage. This lot is, on the map that I had, 120 feet short. Residential per dwelling unit. Now, if this is a dwelling unit, if it has 3 bedrooms and bathrooms and so forth, I think there's some argument to be made that it's a dwelling unit.
If you look at the definition of dwelling unit, it talks about bedroom, bathrooms, cooking facilities. This doesn't meet the definition of a dwelling
But
unit.
just by removing the cooking facilities, it brings that building into something other than a dwelling unit.
The planning board quite often issues permits for bunkhouses, and that they usually put a condition on it that says there can be no cooking facilities.
Makes a big difference,
Yeah.
because if it was a dwelling unit, it would require
Or,
a minimum of 40,000 square feet of the lot.
That's why-
And there would be 2 dwelling units on the lot.
you got Campbell dwelling unit. That's 400 foot of frontage.
And each dwelling unit requires 200 feet of frontage. So
Right.
It requires 400 feet.
That's why you have to modify this building so it doesn't fit the definition of a dwelling unit. This is what I brought to their attention over a year ago. We've been back and forth for 3 years. Why this hasn't been resolved yet, to be honest, I don't know. The big issue is between him and his next door neighbor.
So our ordinance defines not dwelling unit, but residential dwelling unit? And,
This is from the state.
right, yes.
Lot ordinance.
Yeah, no, I understand that, Jack, and there've been a number of updates to that since 2006, the latest of which we've incorporated into the town ordinance as of the vote last March. So let me just read this to you. This is the definition of residential dwelling unit. A room or group of rooms designed and equipped for use as permanent, seasonal, or temporary living quarters for only one family at a time and containing cooking, sleeping, and toilet facilities. The term shall include mobile homes and rental units that contain cooking, sleeping, and toilet facilities regardless of time period rented. recreational vehicles are not residential dwelling units. So it sounds like, according to this definition, you have to have all those elements: cooking, sleeping, and toilet facilities. And that should be consistent with what's in the DEP's minimum.
I think it's exact.
It's very.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. So in this case, there's no cooking,
They
just,
used to be. They've been removed.
and sleeping and toilet.
That's it.
So it sounds like this started off kind of bad, then it got worse, right?
Mushroom dried up.
Then, yeah. I mean, the fact that that the lot size, the dimension, was reported as being a conforming lot. It really wasn't. And then, you know, the evolution of the plans with the people and,
Well, the fact that it was a non-conforming lot basically means that you would have still approved the application. Instead of me, you would.
Correct.
You'd have approved it, as long as it didn't show cooking facilities.
Correct.
They went and built way more than what they got a permit to do.
which is another aspect that was not right.
And this is going, this consent agreement would ultimately go to the select board for approval, because it's basically a contract between the town and the violator.
Doug, you have a question?
I don't want to muddy the waters, but can I make a suggestion going forward? Mr. Sutton brought up the issue of the deed restriction, which I understand is a, you know, civil issue between the neighbors. I certainly know Gary's got plenty to do and can't look into deed restrictions or anything. But if, when you guys approve a project, if you did what you know, with your conditions, if you said something like must conform to existing deed restrictions, you would save people a lot of money just by saying that one thing, because I think you're aware that our neighbors on Danish Shore spent a tremendous amount of money dealing with the George Brown issue. We won that case, but it cost a lot of money because he violated existing deed restrictions. And I totally understand you can't go into that. You guys can't get into deed restrictions. I mean, it's just too much to deal with. But just by saying that, when you issue it, it would make it very clean and clear to people.
It's kind of a two-edged sword, though, because if we put that into our permits or into the ordinance to allow us to put it in the permits, then the town's responsible for enforcing it.
Right.
And that's, I think, the rabbit hole we don't want to go down.
Nor can we do that.
Or,
It's not legal for the town to enforce a deed restriction. You don't have a right to do it. Whether you want to do it or not, you don't have a legal right to do it.
If there were some awareness without having, putting the liability with the town, I think that would be.
I think that's where you talked about the notification of neighbors prior to, I mean, if people knew about that, those types of things ahead of time, that would alleviate
Yep.
a lot of hassle on a lot of people's part.
Indeed.
But is it everybody's business on what somebody's doing?
Well, actually, I don't know, frankly, every other town I've gotten a permit, like in Waterville, every abutter has to know about a permit.
You do the same thing in Sydney.
Yeah.
All shoreline permits, whether.
Not even shoreline, in
Yeah,
Waterville.
well, in Sydney, shoreline permits, whether it's conforming structure, conforming lot, or non-conforming, they all go through planning board. Every meeting is a two-meeting process, because you can do planning board and you explain what you want to do. The town notifies the butter, and then you come back to the second meeting.
Yep.
Because we chose not to do that. We talked about it in quite lengthy.
We did.
Just seems like a lot of this could be alleviated, a little forethought. Because we dealt with it firsthand, and you're going down the same road that we went down, Mr. Scott. I can see where your process is gonna go with that, because we just dealt with it.
the other way.
The other neighbor, yeah,
I didn't get into that.
Yeah.
That's not my,
yeah,
that's not my concern.
yeah.
Let's, just to talk this out a little bit, regarding the point about the septic and the distance from the property line, and the question, Jack, that you had about should you want to put in a well in the future, and that whole thing. If, under the law, they'd come in to the planning board and asked to do it as long as they met the setback requirements for the planning board, relative to the structure, we would have approved it. Relative to the plumbing code, would that have been allowed
Yeah.
at the same time?
Yes.
So,
As a matter of fact, if Jack chooses to, and he didn't have a concern, Jack can build his well right on this property line, 10 feet from this guy. Would he want to? I'm sure not. But could he? Yes. The septic's already there. If I choose to drill my well right next to your leach field, my bad, but I'm allowed to do that.
right, yeah.
You're not allowed to put your within 100 feet of my well, but I can put my well right beside yours. I'm sorry, but that's the way it works.
I'm thinking about it from the process perspective and notification process, type of a thing. In the case of this, it had to come in, and Jack had been notified, and the other abutters in that area. It sounds like what would have still happened is there would have been nothing to have prevented a permit from being authorized from the planning board, nor from the licensed plumbing inspector at the time. Despite the greatest objections of someone who was a property owner right next door, who would say, I don't like that, because I might want to put a well in. The way I'm seeing it right now,
You're right.
I'm looking for a mechanism or a process, because I heard you loud and clear, Jack, about that, you know, and I'm wondering what could be done. And it sounds like there's, from what I'm seeing right now, based on the law that's in front of us, there is nothing that would have changed the outcome relative to the way the law is written now.
I mean, this has been a long-standing complaint about the state plumbing code for 25, 30, when I first started DEP, I would hear complaints, just like what you were raising, Jack. But, you know, the plumbing code's always, it can't speculate, you know, it can only deal with what's on the land in terms of the location.
Not right. And not only that, but they've amended the state plumbing code in the last several years. And I can go, a wall can go within 60 feet of the septic nowadays, just based on how much casing you have. If you have a
Right.
certain amount of casing, I can go less than 100. I can go down to, I think it's down to 60 feet.
I personally think scientifically, hydrogeologically, that's bogus. Doesn't, you know, doesn't hold up to close scrutiny, but that's exactly what the plumbing code, because that's not how groundwater, that's not how leachate flows.
I know.
Right. It sounds like an alteration to the plumbing code that would alleviate a situation like this is to say, when next to undeveloped land, no septic can be closer than 100 feet to that line, property line. And I know that would never go. I'm just saying, if that were in place, that would alleviate a situation exactly like what Jack's talking about.
The irony of all this is, and that's one reason why the state minimum lot size was increased,
Right? To
to
allow.
deal with the distance, but there are plenty of subdivisions that just barely meet that state minimum, which is smaller than Belgrade's. Depending on the configuration of the lots, you can't get the separation. You can't, you know, and I think that's the reason why the plumbing program went to taking into account depth, you know, congested subdivisions.
Yes, Jack?
I appreciate you hearing me out on this. I And I appreciate that you're boxed in certain areas. But I come away personally with the impression from this whole affair that it supports the idea, very prevalent in Maine, that it's a lot easier to get forgiveness than it is permission. And I hope this doesn't become a model that's replicated by others.
I would say you're right. I would say you're right. It's easier to get forgiveness than to get permission.
Gary, I'm just curious, I mean, that's used to be a management philosophy at Maine DEP, that if you were going to do something to try to get the job done, it was easier to just go ahead and do it than get permission from senior management. So you just went
Right.
ahead and did it and got slapped on the wrist later. But that aside,
But he's gonna bring his structure into conformance, so he's not getting forgiveness for a non-conforming structure.
Right, right, because
He's gonna
there's,
pay a fine, and he's also gonna bring it into conformance.
right, there is penalty, and you'll have to pay.
yeah, I wanted to ask, though, about the broader issue that Jack's raising, which is, I mean, I can't recall of too many after-the-fact applications coming to us. And so I wanted to ask you, you know, are there a lot of people out there doing whatever the hell they damn well please and
No.
without a permit application?
No, there's very few between.
As far as you reported, anyway.
And that's a good point, too, because the way we'd hear about it, someone would have to report it. Someone would have to have the ear and say, to the ground and say, hey, Gary, did you hear about this? And, you know, go investigate, you know, lodge a complaint and then have that
I
authorization
would
to go.
imagine there's many of them, that's happened many times.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
You know, and the other thing is, if I took my garage at my house and I made 3 bedrooms, I'd have to deal with the septic issue, okay? But if my kids and my grandkids come to my house on a weekend, they can all park a car in my garage and they can sleep in the garage. I haven't created any bedrooms,
Right.
but I got 6 people sleeping in my garage. What's the difference? What's the difference? I can't prevent you from sleeping out in your garage.
Right, and we did. Yeah.
No, that was-
That's a whole
That's a story for another time, I
That
think.
was the doghouse bit.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think the key, though, is that the violator is, at the end of the day, at the end of the process, not gonna have something that they couldn't have otherwise gotten if they've done things correctly in the first place. They're not getting any reward, they're not getting any, they're not getting a benefit by virtue of violating the shoreline zoning ordinance.
Right.
They have a
So,
bigger
I
issue
mean, that's
with
the
their
key.
neighbor.
That is key.
Their big issue right now is with their neighbor and the use.
Yeah,
That's the big issue.
And, you know, besides any penalty that may be paid to the town, there's the, sort of all the additional costs they've incurred for having screwed up.
And the only thing that was not apparent at the time that this was, you know, authorized or would have been approved by us had it come to us, was the unforeseen condition that Jack talks about with, should he want to drill
Yes,
a well.
right.
So that's one of those unforeseen circumstances that, you know, I'm not thinking at all that the person did something intentionally about that.
How big is that lot? How big's your lot?
But it's a point of land that sticks out into the lake, so that going into it from the Jones property, it gets narrowed. Or if you're ever going to have a structure on there, somebody else, well, I'm not going to do it, but if somebody else has a structure on there, you have to have a well, a year-round structure, you have to have a well, and you have to have a septic system, and you have to find for both.
Right, but if, I mean, it's gotta be longer than 100 feet long,
Oh, yeah, it's a lot, well, yeah.
so there's plenty of space to put a well.
How many acres is it?
Well, I think it's around 2.5 to 3 acres.
Yeah, so there's plenty of space to put a well that's gonna be 100 feet from this septic. And you can't prevent somebody from putting a septic on their property. I mean, it reaches a point where a budding property owner can overstep the bounds of telling the person of what he can do with his property if it's all legal. The only thing that he screwed up on was by putting that kitchen in there, and that made it to an illegal structure. So other than that, the whole structure and everything else is all legal, as far as what we can do.
I think a lesson for us as a board, just based on sort of the facts that you've laid out and the drawing that you showed us, is that a lot of times when we get drawings, site drawings, it doesn't show right-of-ways. It's supposed to, but they don't. And we could have easily, in a similar circumstance, approved something that was in somebody's right-of-way without knowing it.
Well, that's illegal.
Right,
So that's
exactly.
That's not on us. There's laws.
Of course
in
it is
place.
on us.
No, it
That's the
isn't,
same.
Of course it is.
That's the same with the deed restriction.
Right, so that deed restriction restricts him from building there. That's not on us, and not reporting that right away to us isn't on us. That's a legal, total legal, different body, legal body. We're permitting that he can put that on his property, but it's not legal to put it on a right of way, even if it's permitted.
I'm not,
Question I have is, does our applications say show right of ways?
yeah.
And therefore, if it says, depict the right of way, and then someone doesn't, we are assuming that what we get in front of us is accurate,
And it might not be.
and it may not be.
I mean, just, it could be a CMP right-of-way.
Exactly, it could be any right of way, or
It could be another utility right-of-way.
so.
I mean, I understand Craig's point, because there's no setback from a right-of-way. It's just setbacks from property lines, water, and roads, public roads.
And utilities.
And, well, that's not in our ordinance. The setback from a power line is not in our ordinance. I don't know if that's maybe state law or something, but.
Maybe it is, yeah.
That's CMP rules.
Okay,
But
you're right, it's not in our ordinance. That's
But it's not in our
Because we
ordinance,
went
just
through
like,
that with Beckett House.
Craig's correct, that it's not in our ordinance for a setback from a right-of-way.
I don't see on this application, though, when you discuss where it says to show existing right of way.
If you go to this part of the ordinance that talks about what's supposed to be in the site plan,
62.
right-of-ways is listed.
Page 62.
I thought Rich said it's on our application.
No, I put on our instructions.
That's why we get so many incomplete applications, so is because it's so difficult for the normal person to fill out an application. Now we're making it so they almost have to hire somebody or come through the process several times, because you not only need an application, but you need the whole shoreline zoning ordinance. And just to fill out an application for a screen porch. That's why a lot of these people that have never been here come in with incomplete applications. Not everybody's book smart. Not everybody can get that ordinance and know it.
But the good news about that is we have we offer assistance, at least through Gary. Because consultation with Gary is an excellent way to make sure that someone can say, oh, I didn't understand this, how can you guide me? And he can.
And I don't have an issue with that, but it's not my job to fill out your application.
True.
And that's what they expect you to do.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, you guys aren't gonna get any more applications, because every one of them I'm gonna look at and say, no, it's not complete. I've never seen one that's complete. And a lot of it's because of the reasons you just talked about.
Right.
Okay? So, I'm not gonna do it for them. That's not my job to fill out your application. I don't mind assisting you, I don't mind answering a couple questions.
Right. But filling it out entirely for somebody is not your job.
And that's what they want you to do. That's what they expect you to do.
Is there any way we can help set that
You
expectation?
know how many people I deal with that don't have a clue how to draw a site plan to scale?
Yeah, well,
You know
I'm
how
guessing a
many
lot.
people say to me, what's that mean? They don't even know what it means.
Or how to do it.
Or
Right,
how, much less how to do it.
right. To scale, what?
Right.
Right? So, is there any way to help set expectations at the point that they pick up the application from Nick at the start to say,
We do that now. We give them an instruction sheet. So when you go through the instruction sheet, it says, question 9, see page, section such and such of
Right.
the ordinance.
right? And then they go,
So
huh?
there's about 5 on there that they have to go through the ordinance to even know what the
What to
question
do.
is asking. Or go online and read the ordinance to see what we're even talking about.
And then when they go online to read the ordinance, then their eyes are rolling in their head and they don't know what we're saying.
Correct.
Because they don't do this
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Right,
They're not
it's-
familiar with it.
But go ask them to fix their truck, they'll be experts.
Exactly, yeah, which is,
But to have them fumble through this, I mean, I even struggle going through it. I've been building all my life.
I know, I know, there's a lot of stuff in this.
So,
I know that the information is important. because
Yeah, how do
they
we-
Look at it, but most people struggle with
Yeah.
it, they do.
What, in your experience, the other towns you work for, you know, how do they handle what we're going through? How do they have the same problems? They don't?
You
How
come
come?
to the first meeting and you show a drawing. If the drawing shows that I'm 50 feet, if the drawing says I'm 50 feet from the water, they don't care if it's a scale or not. Their goal, their objective is to know how far you are from the water. They don't care if it's 3/30 seconds equals an inch or an inch equals an inch. What's important to them is that they know how far you are from the water. That's what they're talking about.
I don't understand the advantage of to scale. What's the advantage? If you have the measurements there that show you the measurements, what's the advantage of having it to scale?
We've, time and time again, have had applications where, because it was to scale, we were able to find errors in the drawing. Time and time again. That's the advantage of having it to scale. So we are not giving out blank checks.
Accuracy can be really important, especially later, when something has to be investigated. That would be my take on it, to answer your question. So having something to scale, you could say, oh, this is what's going on, I see what has happened, there's an error here.
I mean, you know, whether you agree with that or not, Craig, it doesn't matter. You know why it doesn't matter? Because that's the state minimum. And the fact of the matter that we weren't requiring it in the past is, you know, shame on us because we weren't following the ordinance.
So did
Yeah,
Sid,
I'm not saying that I agree with it or disagree with it, I'm just saying people have a hard time with it.
Right.
The average Joe has a hard time with it. And I hear so many times, I don't know how to do this. What do you mean to scale? I don't even know what it means.
did Sydney not adopt the state minimum guidelines?
They haven't changed their ordinance yet.
Oh, so they haven't done that yet.
Our first,
You
our
can't
first-
compare Belgrade to Salem. We don't even have a building permit application in Salem. You walk in my office and say, I want to build a house, I get a copy of the septic plan, I usually the septic drawing, and I write you out a building permit. I mean, a building permit. We don't even have that.
I see.
the permit we approved tonight, the first one, if they wouldn't have been to scale 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't have noticed the difference in that few feet of square footage you needed.
Doug, what do they do in Waterville?
But that's a whole different thing too. I mean, that's, can't apply the
I don't
same
know.
to a town.
I know, but Pete had a question, I was just
I
curious
feel
if
like,
we.
I feel like it is the scale of Waterville,
Do they have a city planner? in-
but, oh yeah, in Denver, she's been there forever.
So that might be another element that exists within the municipality that we can't offer. Like if someone comes in and says, hey, I want to do something, what do I do?
Yeah,
Maybe they.
And that's Ann's role. I mean, Gary can't do all that.
Right.
We
Right.
Consulting on a question or two is way different than
Yeah.
meeting with a planner.
The city planners get into the detail. The city planners get into the detail. Yeah. And it sounds like here in Belgrade, there's no one really authorized to get into the detail. No, so,
I think,
Well, we get into a fair amount of detail. I mean, I think we're guilty of crossing the line a lot of times of designing projects for people. And one, that's probably inappropriate and it's probably illegal too. Now, is there an alternative? I don't see a good alternative for, I mean, many of the, as Craig
Yeah.
accurately pointed out, a lot of the applicants we get are pretty unsophisticated.
there is an alternative, I'm just thinking aloud. Maybe Belgrade should come up with, new job position here in Belgrade. Have a town planner. And that's something maybe this board, we could bring forward to the select people and say, you may want to consider it in the next budget.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Why not?
I know, I hear you, Pete, and I see the benefit of it.
It could make sense.
Even a town planner,
Yeah.
they're not gonna fill out your application for it. They're not gonna draw you, site plan to scale for you.
Right, okay.
They're gonna review it, make sure that it's complete before it goes to the planning board.
And get right, and then they summarize it to the planning board. They would ensure it was complete.
I can't find an application that's ever 100% true, unless it's done by a professional engineer. And it's done by every.
Yeah, they do.
Still sometimes,
And even then, they.
Sure.
They miss stuff.
Human,
but they're spending $7,000 to $8,000 to get a permit into a town.
But, yeah, okay, when I say, all right, let's think about, just focus on shoreline zoning, that activity. Maybe, having a town planner available somehow or another, just for the shoreline zoning, because those people who are coming here for shoreline zoning permits, theoretically, they're gonna be well-funded, you're gonna have a lot more money than the non-shoreline zoning person, okay? Because they got a big, they're gonna buy this property, or they have it, they bought it, they spent a lot of money for it. So, basically, they got deep pockets, so they can afford an Andy Dendon bar, whatever.
Just to go to the planning board and build a deck?
Well,
They should hire an engineer?
well, just do a deck, they wouldn't have to do that, but for people who want to, put on, remodel it, add on, it's another building, et cetera,
Yep.
get into it, some complex stuff. Town could have, planning board, a planner for those kind of people.
That's just like the Oakland Town Council, what somebody proposed, that every application that comes to the town has to be accompanied by a survey, okay? So if I want to go to Depot and buy $1,000 survey, $1,000 shed, I gotta pay $4,000 to $5,000 on the property survey?
Well, I'm not talking about, I'm just talking about shoreline zoning.
Yeah, but there's a lot of normal people on the shorelands that are paying $6,000, $7,500 a year in taxes on houses that they've had for a long time, and yeah, they fixed them up slowly over the years. They have just a regular job, a regular paycheck, and they're paying almost as much as I am for rent, for the taxes. So they're basically renting their land, because the shoreland taxes have gone through the roof, and, it's what everybody wants to do, is tax, make them spend more money, What about the people that have been in Belgrade all their damn lives,
Yeah.
living on these lakes? And we have everybody coming in, wanting to make them do this, spend their money here, do this, oh, we're gonna tax you some more, we need a new ballpark in Oakland for the school. At some point, you gotta stop the taxing, stop the spending.
Rich?
Well, I just had a comment that, personally, I don't feel that in order to have a complete application, you need to go hire somebody And I know some people just don't have it upstairs, but the majority of people ought to be able to put a full application together by simply reading the application and get a copy of the ordinance. I question whether 10% of the people who file an application even picked up or read the shoreline zoning ordinance. They just try to wing it, and then get a half an application here, and it's because
I think
they
that's
didn't
what's
take the
happening.
time to do what they need to do or should do. That's my thinking.
No, I know it. You know,
I think we've strayed quite a ways from Jack's concerns.
Actually, Jack's concern, that we've been discussing for the last hour, isn't even what was on the agenda that we came to discuss. We haven't got to that yet.
Well, I was going to ask about that too, because in our board packet, Jack, we got a series of email, sort of daisy chain of emails concerning, I guess, a possible subdivision on the Dunn Road near the Sandy Cove Road, and that's what we thought you were interested in discussing with
Well,
us.
there's a logging operation going on, has been going on since last spring, and it was going on today, because I heard machinery down there today. I believe it's McGee that's doing it. It's essentially the land, I think it's some 270 acres, don't hold me for that figure, but it's a big piece of land. It lies between the west boundaries of the transfer station and the additional part that was bought as a buffer at the transfer station, and the Sandy Cove Road and the Sandy Cove properties on the north end of Sandy Cove. It's not being clear cut as far as I can see, but it looks like they're taking selected species out one at a time. How far it goes and what's finally done with it, I don't know. But from a timber harvesting standpoint, and they have a logging easement on the Sandy Cove Road. They can use the Sandy Cove Road, but just for logging. So that road can't be an access road to that property. So they'll have to put, if they or some future owner wants to use that land and develop it, they have to put an access road onto the Dunn Road. There is a pathway, looks like it's the start of a roadway out to the Dunn Road, doesn't go onto the Dunn Road yet. There isn't a culvert there yet, but there is a roadway that looks like it's lined out partway up the hill, heading west towards the Sandy Cove Road. I'm on the road committee above there, and my concern there was that hill, the road in that hill is subject to serious washing, both sides. There's water that's directed from the south side under the road, comes across the Sandy Cove Road, under the Sandy Cove Road, and then diversion ditches there, and 2 or 3 of them partway down the hill. Any development along that hill, and I have heard rumors that there's development planned for individual lots along that hill. Any development there has got to take into account the water flow that comes down that hill. Actually, from both sides of the Dunn Road, from the upper Dunn Road. And it has to take into account the diversion ditches to try and modulate the water that comes down. So that's about what I know about it, but there's big goings on there. Whether it's McGee who is going to do developing, or he's going to take the lumber and sell it to somebody else who will do development, it looks like there's going to be activity there. And, I have that concern about the roads at least.
so you're saying that should there be a subdivision that's planned, we would then hear about that subdivision activity here, right? Yeah, I would hope so too. And that's where I guess our role would come into play relative to that subdivision. But is there another aspect that you would ask of us? about this? I mean, 'cause I hear your concern, you know, proper, basically making sure that the water's taken care of is flowing down that.
Well, it has the potential to be a significant development. And I think you should be aware of it, of the going up, because
Okay.
there is very significant logging activity going on there now.
So Peter, Jack had raised concerns about it, and I suggested, you know, that probably just appropriate just to put it on y'all's radar screen. Just so it's,
Got it.
if something comes before you, you're aware.
Right. Okay, that's good, because should a subdivision application come in before us, we would have some context and understanding.
And of course, next week we'll be meeting with some planners from KB Cog and talking about some revisions and updates of our subdivision ordinance that might help use for regards as well.
Yeah, that's great, on the 14th, and so that would be good.
Unfortunately, though, we may be in a bind someplace because our ordinance only counts on town-approved roads. So you can come in and put a road anywhere you damn well want, as long as you get the state to give you a culvert. They can put in the width they want, like they want. There's no ordinance against it.
I mean, my attitude about that is we can only control the things we can control.
Right.
Right.
Well,
But our ordinance-
This would be to a town road.
This is a town road.
That's what it is. It's on a town
Okay.
road.
So that's good, though, so that applies.
And on the other matter that you guys were discussing, if I may be so bold, but, I mean, I'd like to get together, you know, maybe with you, Peter, and just brainstorm some ideas about it, and just examine the process, if there's a way that we can make it more efficient for the applicant, for you guys, if there's something that we can do to help everybody in this process, so it doesn't feel so onerous. I mean, frankly, I worry about you guys a little bit, just about, you guys spend a tremendous amount of time going over applications, and we very much value your service, and I don't want any of you guys burning out on that as well. And so, I think it'd be good just to examine that and see if we can come up with some ideas and then bring those back for our board discussion.
Okay, that'd be great, I'd be into it, so. And just so you know, I think part of our previous discussions when we were going through the shoreline zoning revisions that we were talking about, and we talked about the, basically the cheat sheet to go along with the town application. It was in the spirit of trying to make sure that there was some kind of assistance for the applicant at the time of picking it up from Nick at the front desk, so you say, okay, what do I do? Okay, there's a certain responsibility that goes along with the, you know, to the person that wants to submit the application. And that's, I think, what Rich was talking about, you know. They may have to actually refer to the shoreline zoning ordinance, there might be questions, you know, and they may have to actually, you know, scratch their noggin and sort of figure out what's going on. That's not a bad thing to try to figure out, but we are asking them to think before they come in and be as complete as possible. Should they have some questions, consult with Gary on a couple things, but certainly not have him fill it out for them.
And I agree, that is obviously not Gary's job, and having worked in a municipality with planners, that's not a planner's job either.
Yeah.
So that's not a silver bullet, and even if it were, I think convincing the select board voters to approve something like that, the financial cost of it, it's not a terribly realistic expectation. So we gotta find a way to work with the resources that we have. One of the things that I wonder is, you know, was mentioning that we finally are using the new application that had previously been approved, and I was unaware that we were using an outdated application just so that we wouldn't extend the paper costs. But had I known that, we've been using the new application back in July. So, because I think that was, I just don't think that was a good way of doing business. This place burns through lots of paper, a few more sheets would have hurt.
We may have been, you know, arguably, it could have been said that we were penny wise and a pound foolish, perhaps. But, hey, we did the best we can.
Water under the bridge now.
Yeah.
And so the good news is maybe this new application will help people to some extent with their, in filling it out.
Question for them. When you hand an application out with the instruction sheet, does the instruction sheet talk about photographs?
Yes,
It's on there?
item 10, which talks about scale drawings, I think the last sentence must have 4 pictures of each side, or pictures.
We'll have this minute going.
Right.
I gotta do that, so I'll call you and we'll get together.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight.
No, thank
you for spending time with me. It's a scintillating group, right? I mean, we got a lot going on. So thank you very much. And then, Jack, I want to make sure you know that we've heard what you had to say. You know, with the Dunn Road in particular, I would anticipate that should there be some sort of subdivision application coming in, we would, I'm assuming if it were to come in, it would come in sometime soon. This board would be assembled as is. There'd be a body of knowledge that knows that you're talking about, and we'd have awareness on it, so.
Oh, yeah, there'd be site visits and
Oh, yeah, there would be a lot. You know, if it's 5 years out, I can't say I'm gonna be on the board at that time, so.
Thank you for taking the time.
Of course, of course.
And we do have rules on,
Thanks, Anthony.
as well, we do have rules on slopes and how steep you can work with and stuff like that. So if it's steeper than what can be built on, they can't do it anyways, but.
As long as it isn't a routine happening, because there's a potential road entrance on the Dunn Road that could, in time, serve a lot of people, whether it's a private road or a town road.
Mhm.
It needs to be well done. It needs to be done.
Yeah. One of the things that, and we've had a number of discussions about this, and you've heard the town manager allude to it, the current subdivision ordinance, though, is incredibly out of date and woefully inadequate. So much so that I thought one of the issues that you were concerned about was line of sight on the Dunn Road. There isn't even a line of sight standard in that 1988 ordinance, which was surprising to me, because I went back to look at it just because I thought there was. You know, it just speaks to the need to bring that into the modern era.
Yep. it's just-
what's the line of sight?
Well, so that when you come to an intersection from, say, the subdivision road, how many feet do you have to the left and the right when you're stopped there? Do you have enough sight,
Traffic.
usually based on
On
speed
traffic.
limit?
It's a foot per mile per hour. It's a 45, I should go, it's 450 feet.
Okay, anything else for us tonight? No? So for our agenda, we don't have any more items. Are there any updates, Gary, that you would care to pass along?
No.
Nick?
Oh, yeah, there should be only new products from now on. We didn't want to.
Wonderful.
Many people coming in still asking for them, or?
No,
Yeah, that's what I would expect. So hopefully, you know, when we start up in earnest again in terms of the permit applications we get next March, April, they'll be all on the new forms with the instruction sheets, providing the applicant with better guidance.
Great. Any updates from board members on it? Rich?
Last time we met, talked about the revised shoreline zoning map and CAI, and I indicated that I'd put something together to tell them what we needed done to the map, so that they could come up with an estimate on price. I wrote a letter, draft of it here, and looking at it, seems we need two modifications to the shoreline zoning map. One is the finger of wetland that we've been talking about down on Belgrade Stream. And the other one would be Great Bay upper Long Pond, Great Pond, I think. That wetland was rated as moderate to high value. It's no longer. And my letter basically says that, you know, we need that little finger showing resource protection. and the wetland, Great Bay would no longer be resource protection because of modern high-value waterfowl habitat, but there are other criteria that may keep it in resource protection, or portions, such as steep slopes on a portion of it, forested wetland around, so it could be a fair amount staying resource protection. But I tried to outline that, and I made a copy of the existing shoreline zoning map, marking the two areas that would need modification, and a copy of the resource protection criteria to make sure they know what we're talking about, or what they need to look at for these other resource protection criteria. They did ask in the memo that Nick, or somebody may have seen it, they sent it this afternoon, how many copies of our map, I guess that's part of their estimate, is what they would have to provide us for real copies afterward. And I don't know what the board's thinking is on that, whether we want 2 originals and some small copies, or what. But I didn't finish the letter because I didn't know what the board was thinking. But once I get that number, it's my thinking that give this to Nick or send the electronic version, and he could put it on town letterhead and send it back to him.
Okay, so we should talk about the numbers, right? So what do you think, two?
I would think we want at least 2, the big copy
Right.
originals, one that Gary can have mounted somewhere, and probably another copy for safe protection or storage,
Yeah.
so that we can lose it somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
And is there any
Or we
need-
could bring it out when the one that's been mounted fades to the point where we can't read it anymore, like the last one.
Right. Yeah, good point. Do we need to have any smaller versions for anything?
I don't know, I think it would be nice to have some, like 11 by 17s or whatever.
Didn't we used to incorporate that in the shoreline zoning ordinance, like if somebody wanted to purchase an ordinance, wasn't this?
Oh, a copy of the map?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we would clearly, it would be
Black
very
and white,
good
right?
to have,
What's in it?
it would have to be, this, I think it'd have colors, because the shades just fade in and mesh into each other.
How about asking for a digital file that we could have on our website, which then if someone wanted to print on their own, they'd be happy, they could do it. You know, if they want to print out 11 by 17 or 24 by 36 or
We
whatever.
actually have a digital that Andy Dunbar was
Yeah.
on my computer. Not about it.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of a nice way to go, because then it's not a production, it's a production version, but it's not an output on paper that we would have to pay for. Well, I'm asking, maybe the file would have to pay
So
for
we'll
it.
skip the small paper copies and just get the digital thing of which somebody can.
Print if they want. This, I'm
So
just
that could just be
brainstorming.
loaded on the website.
Yeah, I mean, does that sound like a good idea, or am I bypassing the needs of the many? I don't want to. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. While we're on this subject,
Yeah.
forgot, Jack pointed out to me tonight that the Sandy Cove Road is not shown on that map. All the other roads are identified. It says King Point Road or whatever it is.
Not on there at all,
No.
There's a line missing on the map.
I'll show you the big one.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
Hey, gotta go back again.
Okay.
So we were talking about 2 big copies of them and a digital file.
Yeah, if that's, just, if that sounds good to the board, yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. Yeah.
Here's a done road. See this
Timber Point,
right? And this is Sandy Cove Road right here. All it is a line. No.
Oh, it's not even a road.
It doesn't even show as a road like this.
Looks
you
like
see?
a property line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Huh. All right, so that's, I guess, an edit that must be made.
I could just put in this letter that we'd like them to have Sandy Culver.
I think that's appropriate.
Hopefully they'll be using GIS digital files as their base layer. Pick that up anyway, but it's probably
What's the date of that? 15 years old.
If you look in the upper northwest corner, there's a little piece of the glacier there.
All right, well, we're asking for the edit, so. we'll put it. Rich, thank you for all the work that you've done. Thank you very, very much. Is that map, where is that map?
This one is this one,
Sandy, go for it, you mean?
He has the name.
Yes, that is it.
Yeah, verify with Jack, he knows it better than anybody.
That one is it.
Sounds a little cynical.
That parcel that Jack's describing became a major subdivision. That would pose some interesting challenges for us in terms of our review.
There's a cutout,
One of which is,
there's a cutout down
and
here.
you know, this would all have to be verified, but
Yeah,
you may recall, the town purchased at approved at town meeting and was subsequently purchased the land down gradient from the landfill because that's the direction of the groundwater contamination flow to that interim stream that's down there. I assume that's the property line.
That's the buffer that Jack talked about,
It is.
I think.
What did I send to Jack?
that's
what he
the
does.
real
He buys large
value.
tracts of property. Once his money, he never sells it.
What is this for?
I mean, never seems to.
This is the list room, and this is the.
Not saying that if he doesn't sell it to somebody, they don't.
Right.
But I've never seen it.
It's not
And
his,
he's too old to start that now. I know, Steve.
it's not his bag, right? It's his-
Nobody does. So,
Bushed out.
I haven't heard it.
Well, in preparation for tonight, I just took a drive down there, and as Jack described, it looks like something's been brushed out into the woods like for,
Oh, that's them now. Wow.
well, it looks like fresh brush on the ground, relatively
I guess I
speaking.
haven't seen that.
But, you know, who knows, you know, I mean, it could be anything. The other thing is, there's a sizable deer yard down there. Might not be anymore, but.
Might not be.
Right, exactly.
Rich, thanks. Anything else? Anything else? No? Anybody else have anything, any updates? Pete?
Question, on Sean Grant's marina there, what's the story with that? I went to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and my understanding was that they said we should make a decision
happen overnight.
I don't get that either. How can you make a decision? How can you remember everything?
I wasn't there, Anthony was. Anthony was there. He went to trade one night.
Remember all the details 3 or 4 months later than went down on usage. That's what they do.
That's true.
Anybody here listen to it? Was it live
I got
stream or something?
better things to do with my life.
And
So the judge waits till the 4th month and then goes,
What was that about again?
You just hope they have really good staff.
Right.
So Gary and Jack, you guys have the same shirts on.
I know.
I just noticed it.
They
Yeah.
texted each other.
They both got green on top.
We figure, we call them advance.
Yeah. Coordinate your wardrobe.
Well, thanks, everybody. If there's nothing else, let's call it a wrap for tonight.
Okay.
57. Out of here, bud.